We're the Tastestations, and we're oh so creamy, oh so smooth. We're the first hard candy from Hershey to you. Butterscotch, peppermint, caramel, and chocolate. Yum daddy hard candy.
Is it working?
Yep. Hey, aren't you a little tall to be a Marty McFly?
Yeah.
You're such a dreamboat.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Saturday lockdown live stream. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm not intending to be in costumes for these lockdowns, but the crew keeps picking topics because I think they know that these outfits are in my closet. And so then they say, well, you know, you've got to put part of the outfit on for the live stream. So I'm going to run out of costumes pretty quickly if this keeps up.
The next live stream is going to be Legend. I can't wait to see what he does.
I do not have any Legend stuff.
I do.
So I won't be doing that. Hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope you're staying healthy. We are doing the same. We're just sort of laying low day by day and hoping that this all ends sooner rather than later and for the betterment of everybody. But we thought we would discuss the Back to the Future trilogy today because Melinda and I are very familiar with it, but we haven't...
Especially you.
But we haven't really made it a topic priority on the channel. Early on, I made a video about this flux capacitor replica that I own. And we since did a part 1 on the DeLorean, which I hope one day to re-explore with a part 2. But yeah, we thought we'd talk about the movies themselves, which we haven't really done. I think we did one video that talked about, it was like a jokey video where you and I sat in the DeLorean with no wheels on it to talk about 2015 coming around, like it was finally the future. And we wanted to go back to the 80s or whatever, and
now more than ever.
But that's really been the extent of it so far. You might notice on the table here.
I have a super chat.
Oh, you have a super chat.
Logan Michael, thank you. He says next stream is a 4-hour discussion of Bespin Luke figures. I like that idea actually.
All right, well we'll put that on the docket.
And then he could dress up as a Bespin Luke figure. It'll be a whole thing.
All right, sure.
Fox Mulder, thank you very much for the generous super chat. He says, for providing intellectually stimulating commentary, here's some stimulus money.
Oh, man. Yeah, we've never really done a dive into Back to the Future.
They're asking about your Nike shoes. And
yeah.
Are you wearing Nike shoes?
I am wearing Nike shoes. I don't want to hit anything. They are not the Bruins because Nike is a stupid company and they will not release the Bruins easily again. They made them only available in Nike stores around the world for like 15 minutes, like 2 years ago. Very frustrating. So I built mine off of Nike ID, and I just realized we probably need to plug the computer into the actual Ethernet. So
it'll be your first
It'll be my first
up.
get up and go. Melinda, hold the fort.
Walk in your Nikes and you'll be good. Hi, everybody. So, yes, Michael would have to be the dark-haired Bespin Luke if he did that. But he could have a yellow lightsaber, which would be fun. So we're going to get you started with drinking early today. So you're welcome for that. Not sure what time it is where everyone is, but it's the weekend, so you know it's 6 o'clock in the world somewhere, as they always say. So, yeah, Back to the Future. Ask me a question. There's actually a guy in the chat room named Marty McFly. That's funny. Side note, Doug says, just listen to the Smurfs Dreamland episode. I loved it. I'm glad you liked it. You know, I went back and listened to that slightly for just to see what it was like. And it's weird how much I forget of all of the stuff I study. It's like I completely downloaded into the episode and then it's just gone. So it's interesting. But yeah, that one was crazy, and I do remember the crazy Smurf song that the guy wrote. If you haven't heard that, you should go check it out. How's it going?
It's good.
Getting
Doing
a little
good.
workout today, huh?
Yeah, it's not fun to be in all these layers, knowing you have to do stairs.
So yeah, a lot of people are asking about all kinds of different things on the table, and
Okay.
we will go through all of them, but people are still sort of showing up. So we're gonna chit chat for a few minutes first, and then
Yep.
we will start going through so that we don't end up having people who miss it and then ask over
Right.
and over. So Scuba Pete, thank you for the super chat. He says, just for helping me keep track of what day it is. Livestream. It's Saturday today.
It is Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not as good as Saturday morning cartoons maybe, but it's something, right?
Right.
Dion's chair. Thank you for the super chat. No question. He just sort of gave us a super chat. So thank you very much. JSP says, somewhat related to Back to the Future, documentary In Search of Tomorrow starts crowdfunding in 3 days. I'm not sure what that's all about.
I'm not sure what that is either.
Let us know what that's about. Justin says, Melinda, you seem to be a fan of Die Rugger. Why? I am actually much more of a fan of Go Lion than Die Rugger, although I will say that I like Die Rugger more than Voltron's adaptation of Die Rugger, because to me, it makes a lot more sense with like the reasoning behind. Although I know Michael may or may not agree, they're both kind of broken in different ways. So
Yeah, I like Die Rugger just fine, but I don't like it as much as Beast King Go Lion.
I like the music of Die Rugger way more than I am not a fan of the Voltron music. It's too happy or whatever. It's not Japanese enough. I don't know. So let's see. Why is he wearing a life jacket?
I'm not going to address that because that's just somebody that knows the movie and then is quoting the movie back to everybody.
Oh, what movie?
It's called Back to the Future. Really?
I've seen the first one.
You've seen them all. Don't lie.
I like the third one better than the second one.
Okay, so here's the deal. The Back to the Future trilogy was the first trilogy where I saw every single installment in the theater.
Wow.
I missed the first two Star Wars movies in the theater. I missed Raiders of the Lost Ark and wasn't allowed to see Temple of Doom in the theater. So Back to the Future was the one where I saw every single one in the theater when they came out originally.
Weirdly, Temple of Doom was the only Indiana Jones I saw in the theater.
Well, that is strange. I have since seen Raiders of the Lost Ark on the big screen on a print multiple times, but I still haven't seen Temple of Doom. So,
Doug Palumbo wants to know how you can go back to something that hasn't happened yet. Well, if you've been there before and then you go back, then I guess you go back.
Well, you're going back to a time, and then
Time is a circle.
and then you catch up with those events, and provided that you don't interfere with those events, you may be witness to them. That's my amateurish theory on that. The thing that I don't understand is, based on the rules of Back to the Future, which are not the rules of time travel as laid out by, say, Terminator, which is far more loosey-goosey, or the abhorrent, we're not going to make any rules, Avengers Endgame. Back to the Future is a more tightly woven time travel sequence. And so in the first film, in the very beginning, they established that when you go into the future, you are skipping over all the time. Like, if I want to go from here to Wednesday, then it will appear to everybody that knows me that I will have been gone Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and I will just reappear on Wednesday. So I will have skipped over all of that time. Therefore, it is impossible to meet your future self because you are skipping over all of that time if you're going forward. So whether it's known to everybody or not, Back to the Future didn't originally end with "to be continued." That was added on the VHS release. And then the whole ending sequence was meant to be a joke where Doc shows up to say, Marty, something's got to be done about your kids. Well, if Marty and Jennifer go to the future, based on the rules of that movie, there will be no kids. There will be no future Marty and Jennifer to meet because they will have skipped over all of that time to arrive in 2015.
I like to use Bill and Ted.
Oh,
And then-
God.
I'm just kidding, I don't. Vinkman, thank you for the super chat. He says, what's in that CD in the far right corner, which I guess is all the way over there.
Oh, yeah. That is the... it was like a demo score that came out in 85 because Back to the Future had a soundtrack album with some of the scoring on it, but there was actually a distributor's demo score that was sent out, from what I understand. I don't know if it's a bootleg or not. I just know that I found it in a obscure CD shop in New York City back in, I guess, 99, 2000. I was visiting New York City, and I went into this shop, and they had it, and I bought it. And it's not the only one I've seen, but it is the score as pressed from 1985, and it was not distributed to retail.
Logan Michael, thank you for the super chat. He says, if NECA were to make a DeLorean, would you buy one? They might reveal more Back to the Future figures on their online event in July due to the cancellation of SDCC.
Well, when it comes to DeLorean replicas of the Time Machine, I have the one from Diamond Select of the first movie that has the electronics and the doors go up and it lights up and everything like that. It's about, sorry, I didn't mean to hit the mic. It's about this big, I guess. But since then, I haven't been like as interested in a lot of these ones that have come out, like Hot Toys and this and that. I do have the Lego one because I found it for a good deal from a local toy seller. However, DeLorean scale replicas, and this is just the way it works, they really lost their priority for me because I have the biggest DeLorean you can get sitting in my garage. And so once I had the real car, it wasn't so exciting to go run around and pick up the replicas of the car, especially considering that a lot of the licensees, including Lego and including Diamond, wouldn't pay the licensing to get the DMC put on the grill. The one that I'm really excited about right now, the first one I've ever been excited about in a long time, is the Playmobil DeLorean that has been announced, because it actually has DMC on the grill and it has action figures that go in it. And it looks pretty proportionate, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so first of all, my shirt is Edge of Sanity, my favorite band. Somebody asked, so Dan Swanner rules. Secondly, yes, we realized that the thing fell off the front of the flux capacitor.
Oh, did it just fall off again?
Yes.
God.
So let's go ahead and just talk about the flux capacitor, and you can address the label thing. We've been working with it all morning. It's fine. It just...
Yeah, so that label that's on the front, which is accurate to the prop, is an absolute pill nightmare to keep stuck on that plexiglass. It will not stay. It stayed there for a while. I'm getting ready to just pull out model glue and just glue it to the SOB. I really am. I've used double back tape on it. It just wants to curl up and just pop off. And I was working with it for over an hour this morning trying to get it ready for this live stream, and it still wouldn't stay on. I've got 2 layers of double back tape on that thing right now, and it will not stay on the glass. So, yeah, I'm over it. I give no F's anymore about that label. I do not care.
It is there, but it's fine. We're not going to try to keep fighting with it the whole live stream.
Did they see it pop off?
Yeah. Yeah. Master Son, thank you. He says, I'm glad you finally came up for air from Night Court. Are you playing the famous guitar riff at the beginning or end of the live stream?
You talking about the guitar riff from Night Court?
Yeah, I assume so.
Yeah, Master Son is the secret donator of Night Court. So he's been telling me online that he's been shocked that I've been marathoning it. But I really was that excited about getting Night Court. It's probably my favorite 80s sitcom.
I'm enjoying it as well. So
Yeah.
Anyway, I think some people wanted to know where you got it. What's the, whole.
Well, there's a whole video about this prop that I did way back at the beginning of the channel. The man's name is Bruce Coulombe. At the time that I bought mine, which was around 2010, I believe, there were a few people in the Back to the Future props game, and he was in competition with another person who I don't want to name, but that person, his reputation for quality and accuracy was not great at the time, and so I went with Bruce. I don't know what Bruce's situation is now, because once I got my prop, I kind of, went on my merry way. And
Yeah, back at that time, we were still taking the DeLorean to car shows pretty regularly.
Yeah.
I don't remember how often. There's a pretty big one here in North Georgia area called Caffeine and Octane, and we would take it to that car show every time they had it, basically, for like 6 to 8 months or even more. And it got really old, people coming up to us every single time, multiple times a day, saying, where's the flux capacitor? And so Michael was like, all right, we're getting a flux capacitor and sticking it in there just so I can point to it, and
Right.
People hopefully will stop. It didn't stop them from asking.
Well, what frustrated me though about that was that afterwards, when I did the video about the DeLorean, I was getting all kinds of hate from people saying, get that dumb flux capacitor out of your car. And I'm going, clearly nobody that's talking to me has actually ever owned a DeLorean at all. And these guys are coming at me acting like I'm some, hopeless geek nerd that's ruining the legacy of the car, even though I haven't changed one thing about the car itself.
Yeah,
And
you're
they're like,
pretty adamant about
yeah,
not changing.
I'm not going to change the car. And they're like, get that flux capacitor out of your car. And it's like, you know what? You've never owned a DeLorean. You have no idea what it's like to go to a car show and be asked a million times, where's the flux capacitor? They don't know. So it's
What would you say, aside from that one, what were like the top 5? I remember a whole lot of them.
Cocaine in the fenders. It always likes to lean toward the white lines in the road. People.
Does this leave fingerprints as they're holding a greasy ham sandwich, and then they stick their hand on the car, and it's like, do you have a stainless steel fridge?
Right.
Then you already know the answer.
Right. How do you keep it clean? Blip. Yeah. Yeah. It's a really fun car to drive. It's a really fun car to drive around in, but...
Oh, and people would just plop themselves into the car.
Right.
Without asking, which is just a no-no at any car show. If you go to car shows, regardless of the car, you don't touch it, and you definitely don't just plop your giant butt into the seat.
Right.
And in the DeLorean, that's especially true because it's not really designed for modern girth of many people.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm saying the car is essentially like a pontoon boat. Like it's a fiberglass shell that's like kind of balanced on this thing, and so it could easily crack. For under someone's weight who is more than like what was normal in the 80s.
It's 250 pounds maximum a passenger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't want to be in the situation of having to tell someone, I don't think the car will support you, but it's just the truth. And then the other problem is that the car sits really low to the ground. And so modern people are not used to cars sitting that low. And so when they try to climb out of it, they grab onto the windshield,
which they're not supposed to do,
and pull themselves out of it, and then it can warp.
Yeah, you can actually bend the windshield frame of that car, because the DeLorean is not well built. Like that I mean, that's part of the joke of the movie, but it is not a well built car. It was designed, not designed, it was manufactured basically with Colin Chapman's suggestions going into it, and the Lotus, which he created, is a very lightweight car that is designed to be fast. It's not designed to be, everyday durable, and that's what happened with the DeLorean's DNA. Is It had Lotus Esprit DNA infused into it. And so you have to treat it
Yeah.
carefully, you know?
And Tim Ward, he came for a visit, and he said that he says here in the chat that he felt cramped sitting in it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're used to modern, essentially like Barcalounger on wheels type of engineering of cars, which most
Right.
people these days are used to, like hardcore air conditioners and cup holders and comfortable seats that sit high up, and you just sort of step right in. It is not that.
Right.
It is definitely like an 80s car which was designed to look cool and basically go from point A to point B, but it has nothing to do with like
Right.
like you always talk about a rolling living room.
Yeah. It's
Modern
not,
cars.
yeah,
It's not like that at all.
it doesn't have cup holders. It doesn't have modern amenities. It is, from a driving perspective, it was very ahead of its time. Like the steering wheel was thicker and smaller. It had a completely carpeted interior with leatherette accents and all that kind of stuff. So in that respect, it's much different than, say, driving a contemporary Nissan Z at the time, which still had a big plastic thin steering wheel.
Yeah.
And it had a short throw shifter. Mine's a manual, which is now common. But back then, a lot of cars just had really long manual shifter handles. So yeah, I mean, it's got a lot of things going for it, but it's a driver's car. It is, and it doesn't go fast because it was the late 70s, early 80s. They were all strangled.
Yeah. Master Son says max 250 pounds. I have to lose 10 pounds before I come. I mean, it's an awkward situation to sort of have like people, friends or whoever, even some people who are just really tall, like they may weigh
Right.
more than that. It's not even to say like, whatever. It's literally just the spec of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Can't
Right.
really support it, and it can damage the car. So, it's just one of those weird, wacky 80s holdover things.
Yeah.
JD 1989 says, do you think that the DeLorean would have been better build quality if it was manufactured in San Juan instead of Belfast?
That's hard to say. I mean, we'd have to go back in time and change history and see if we could suss out what San Juan factory situation was like. Yeah.
That was such a perfect storm of issues, what John DeLorean went through with trying to get that car built. I know a lot of people know snippets. Some people, like I know Michael has done a ton of reading and research about a lot about John DeLorean,
Yeah.
and so it's hard when you hear people making like all these jokes insinuating that John DeLorean himself was on cocaine and
Right.
doing all this kind of stuff, which is just not accurate.
Yeah.
Even if you're not in the We Love John DeLorean camp, I don't think there's a lot of evidence to show that he himself was like a drug person. I think he
no.
was he was at that point desperate to try to get funding for his car.
Right.
So
He was just another jet-setting business guy of the 80s, like, but not a drug addicted business guy.
right, he had a lot of flaws, but I don't think that was one of them. King Eric the Great says, "How did the car survive time travel then?" LOL.
Oh, well, yeah, that's movie magic is what that is.
You want to talk about the speedo on the car?
Well, the actual speedometer on the DeLorean only goes up to 85, and that's because of highway safety regulations imposed by the Carter administration. The car goes faster than 85, and it's not limited as far as the engine and acceleration, but the speedometer itself only goes up to 85 to deter people from burying the needle on the pedal. And some people have switched out their speedometers with more accurate ones that go up higher, but then you have to modify other parts of the car as well. It's a real pill is what it is, and the car is mostly mechanically driven, so there's no power steering. Your odometer that reads the miles is not digital or has any sensors or anything like that. It's literally a big spring that like touches part of the wheel hub and counts the revolutions, and that thing can brake. And it's a very futuristic looking car on the outside, but it was still designed in the late 70s, built in 81. So do the math on that.
Can you go ahead and address some of the questions about
Yeah.
Texas and the DMC stuff that's coming out of Texas, because I know that always comes up whenever we start talking about the car and.
Well, the thing is, okay, so the Texas company owns the name and they own the spare parts depot. They own all the spare parts, of which there were a lot of spare parts left over because Margaret Thatcher shuttered the company in the middle of production.
Good old Maggie.
So there's a lot of parts, and then they bought the rights to the name and the logo, and then they own all the actual OEM parts. Well, every few years they announce that they're going to do something to resurrect the car. And it never happens. It's always just a publicity thing to try and keep the car relevant. Now, they're not forcing anybody to part with their money, so they're not doing anything.
I think they're just trying to stir up buzz about.
Yeah, they just stir up buzz. So like every 6 to 7 years, there will be a new news announcement about a new DeLorean. Nobody remembers back in the day when they said, we're just going to start making them out of spare parts. Well, they were already kind of doing that anyway. And then they said a few years later, we're going to make an electric DeLorean. It's going to be amazing. And then that never happened. And then they said, we're going to buy the Pontiac Solstice factory because Pontiac has been shuttered. And that's going to be DeLorean number 2. We're going to make those into DMC branded cars. That never happened. And now they're saying, hey, we're going to start making a new DeLorean. And it's like, yeah, I've heard this all before.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Believe it when I see it, but until then, I'm not really going to pay attention.
Okay, 2 things. One, Matt Movie says, favorite Back to the Future scene from any of the movies. But before that, I want to say, Dilios of Sparta says, do you have a license plate that reads out of time?
Yeah.
And I know you do. I don't know where it is, but...
I do have an out of time license plate. Do you want me to go get it?
I think they do, just because...
I'm trying to remember where it is.
Well, think about it. In the meantime, do you have a favorite Back to the Future scene from any of the movies?
My favorite scene is probably the scene in the parking lot of the mall where they're testing the car for the first time and Doc is showing Marty the car. That is one of my favorite scenes. All of my favorite sequences from Back to the Future are... First of all, the 3 movies are great. I love all 3 of the films. So I'm not trying to take anything away from any of the other films. But the most exciting stuff for me is the stuff where it's them racing against time to try and get to a certain point with the car, like the end of the first movie where he's trying to get that car to start and the music is ramping up and Doc is trying to get the cables connected on the clock tower and Marty knows that it's time to go and the car still won't start. And, he's just like desperate and, finally the car starts and he floors it. As a kid, like that was really compelling to me. I was like, because that was what showed me as a kid that real driving is manual. That was the movie that showed me that because he's shifting and, you see the shots of him hitting the clutch and, the clutch pedal and all that stuff. And it started to show me how that worked better than any other film I'd ever watched. Other things that I do like from the different films plot-wise, I like the stuff in part 2 where he's having to dodge around the events of part 1. Like, I thought that was really brave of them to try and do that. Like, I'm going into the events of part 1, but I have to remain unseen. And I have to...
It's very Harry Potter.
Yeah, in a sense. Harry Potter kind of aped it, and then so did Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked that part of it.
Is that really what my hair looks like from behind?
But the thing about part 2...
I can't do a British accent. I apologize for that. I'm sure that was very offensive to those of you in England, and I didn't mean anything bad by it.
The thing about part 2 that I love is that part 2 takes all these risks. And it reminds me of Empire Strikes Back in that way, and Temple of Doom, where it says, we're going to really do something different. We are going to really complicate the story. There's an alternate 1985 and we went to the future and that's what messed it up and now we've got to get back and oh my God, how are we going to fix this? What point in time do we have to go back to fix it? It's genius writing. And then with the time travel problem that I outlined earlier, even being a part of it, you just kind of erase that and go, let's have fun with this movie. And then with part 3, I've really grown to love that movie over the last 5 or 6 years. And I just like its pace and its tone and its atmosphere. And I'm still never going to like the flying train. I'm never going to like the time machine train. I'm just never going to like it. But it happens right at the very, very, very end of the movie. So I can enjoy the vast majority of that film, you know.
Losing Jeremy says, where did you find your Marty McFly costume? Well, he made it and had some of it made.
Well, this is a vintage LL Bean vest. It is not the exact vest that was worn by Michael J. Fox.
Wasn't that custom made for the movie?
Or no, this is North Face. This is North Face. I don't know if... I don't remember what his brand of vest was, if they ever even determined it. But I just kept looking online until I found a vintage 80s North Face vest that was in the general color scheme. Last time on the Indiana Jones live stream, I mentioned Magnoli Clothiers. Magnoli makes the vest. He made this jacket. This is his replica of the Marty denim jacket.
You can't see it, but here, take this off. So it's 2 different colors of denim, and then on the inside, it's got a lining that's
which
very
matches
specific.
the cuffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Magnoli makes this. This is a North Face, but this is not a replica. It's just a look-alike. And then this shirt is an actual Shah Safari shirt, identical to the one Marty wore. It is from the Shah Safari company, but Magnoli also recreates this shirt because this shirt was only redone in a limited run by Shah Safari. But Magnoli does make this shirt. This shirt right here, it's just a color match undershirt to Marty's shirt from the trilogy. And then...
I think you take this costume a little less specifically than some of your others because you kind of see this as more of a fun costume as opposed to like this has to be screen accurate like Han Solo.
Right. Well, Han Solo, though, everything has to be custom made.
Exactly.
Like nothing was
exactly.
found.
That's what I mean.
This jacket, nobody's ever been able to find the actual guest jacket. So it has to be remade.
Maybe that's what I'm remembering as being custom. People are saying that it was a, wait, somebody set it up above. Class 5 or something like that. You guys yelled it out. Original vest was Class 5 brand.
Okay. See, I put my outfit together before all the specifics were finally rooted out. And so, like I have the Casio calculator watch. They've since remade this. You can buy these brand new from Casio on Amazon. This is the actual Casio watch. And then, like, you know, I've got a pair of, you know, 80s style suspenders that are in the proper width. Some suspenders are too narrow. These are the right width.
They're not Calvin Klein's though, right?
These jeans are not Calvin Klein jeans. Or Guess jeans or whatever they were, because Calvin Klein was on his underwear.
Calvin Klein was on his underwear, that's right.
But these jeans are just light-colored jeans. I don't have the acid wash jeans that he wore in the film with the pegged cuffs.
Well, it's different because you would have to get some really long jeans to peg your jeans.
You know. Again, I'm sitting in a car. Most of this outfit was meant to be correct from the waist up.
And I mean, to be fair, you guys have much more eye for detail than like your randos that are going to be at a car show.
Right.
Or even people at Dragon Con. Like, you'd be shocked at how many people do not notice details. Like, when you do Malcolm Reynolds' brown coat costuming, you have very specific screen accurate stuff, but someone else who doesn't, like, may get the same amount of, like, response from people.
Right.
So I think you guys know what you're looking at, but most people probably don't.
Yeah.
So you're a rarefied breed, you know.
Yeah, you guys are also experts. So.
Yeah, so King Eric the Great says, wasn't Crispin Glover supposed to be in part 3?
Well, they tried to get him for part 2, and he didn't come back. So
a lot of people are talking about Eric Stoltz and his
initial... Eric Stoltz was supposed to be Marty, and they filmed 30% of the movie with him or something like that, and then they realized it wasn't working out, and so they went and got Michael J. Fox, and he did Family Ties during the day, and he did Back to the Future all night for months.
Yeah.
And he said in interviews since then that he always felt badly about Back to the Future because he desperately wanted to do that movie because he knew it was a Steven Spielberg produced film by Robert Zemeckis, who had just done Romancing the Stone. He was a hot ticket at the time, and he wanted to give it everything he had, but contractually, the only way he was allowed to do it was to give priority to his Family Ties obligation, which meant that he says he barely remembers filming Back to the Future.
Yeah,
He just kind of
imagine that.
zombied his way through it, even though we all think he did a brilliant job.
Well, I almost wonder if that gave him an extra air of like tension and stress that may have come through because he was very stressed out in the movie, like a little ball of anxiety.
Well, sure, but
mean,
I think it also boils down to they would say, okay, Michael, we're going to do this line here in a second. And it would just be him going, whatever energy I've got, I'm going to use it not for memory, but just to get the line, intonation, inflection, and emotion right, because that's the take. And then he didn't have any energy left over to remember any of that stuff.
right.
But yeah, so I have no complaints about his performance, but I do find it interesting that he has complaints about his performance.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying, like, talking about why they didn't choose Eric Stoltz and how
They did choose Eric Stoltz.
Well, like, they decided not to go with him after filming some of it, though, because
he was too serious.
Yeah.
He wasn't playing it the way they wanted to. He was way too method and
apparently can't ride a skateboard.
yeah, and there are interviews online from panel discussions with oh man, Tom Wilson, who played Biff, and he talks about Eric Stoltz, and it's interesting because
Kind of like funny to me.
yeah,
The guy who played Biff.
and he talks about how Eric was not the most pleasant person on the set because he was very method and
How was Crispin Glover then?
or maybe I'm getting that confused with Crispin Glover. I'm sure Tom Wilson talked about Crispin Glover at one point. I'll have to go back into the interviews. Either way, he talks about one of those two guys. I can't remember which one it is, but yeah.
I can't see Crispin Glover without thinking of like The River's Edge.
Oh yeah,
which
yeah.
is a
I know.
totally different thing. And so, like, even like after I saw that movie and then I would see Back to the Future, it's like
Right.
weird.
Yeah.
I don't think you guys can see this. Did you want to show this?
Go ahead.
So
This
this is.
to lift it up.
I think they can see
Okay.
it. This is pretty cool. And then it's got the. You made this, right?
I made that. Yeah.
So that's kind of fun.
We have a super chat.
Jeff, thank you very much. He says, "Hey guys, I've been admiring your Laserdisc collection. Never owned a Laserdisc player myself, but I know people who swear it's better than both DVD and Blu-ray. What's been your experience in terms of overall quality?"
I don't know who's been telling you stuff, but
No. No.
Laserdisc was great compared to VHS.
Right.
They were widescreen. The picture was better quality. The audio was digital on the higher end discs, and it was a great way to finally get the whole movie. But it was always letterboxed. They didn't have anamorphic technology back then for home theater. They did not have widescreen TVs back then. By today's standards, though, when DVD came out of the gate, the first thing DVD was doing was just letterbox portovers. So of course, they were just doing Laserdisc portovers. So of course, Laserdisc looked comparable to DVD. But once DVD figured out the anamorphic part of it, which was very soon after they launched, Laserdiscs were on borrowed time. Blu-rays far surpass Laserdiscs in picture quality because this is still at max, I want to say like 480p, not 480p, 480i, whereas Blu-ray are 1080p. So yeah, Blu-rays and 4K Blu-rays,
they look very soupy
yes,
when you watch them. Like, we've watched them somewhat recently. I think the last time I remember us sitting down was when we watched High Road to China, and that was before it was
Blu-ray.
available on the Blu-ray copy.
Right.
But we did sit down and watch it on Laserdisc, and it was pretty soupy. I would say it's on par with VHS, but my eyes are not as fine-tuned as Michael's. He can usually sense like a difference, but
Well, also because we were watching that Laserdisc on a widescreen TV and then having to bump zoom in the letterbox. Whereas if you'd watch one of these on an old tube TV, it would look great. It would look a lot better than a VHS because the image is more stable. The problem these had, of course, was that they had laser rot because the discs are so big that over time, if they're not properly pressed, the layers can separate, oxygen gets inside, and then you can't play them anymore.
Jody says you're missing the sports almanac on the table.
Well, I was waiting for him to say it. I left that off there as an excuse to get up, so I'm going to get up. Ha!
Let's see. King Eric says Crispin sued the director because they used his likeness in part 2. He's still upset. He's still upset until this day because people think that's him in part 2. And Chris Allen says Biff hated Eric. He said in an interview that he wanted to deck him on set, and he told Robert that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and then Maki is asking if anyone remembers the cartoon.
I mean, I remember it, but I was in England at the time. I'll come back and talk about that here in a second.
We will talk about the cartoon shortly. I don't remember it, but... Look at you. You're all prepared and everything.
Yeah, I remember the cartoon coming out, but I was only familiar with it for the summer that I came back from England for vacation. It came out literally the year after I had left the country, so I never got to watch it in broadcast. And I've since been making a point of eventually buying it on DVD to watch it because I know it's come out. But I've not picked it up yet. I need to.
Frank says only the Pepsi is missing.
So. Oh, well, the Pepsi, the hoverboard, here's the thing. I love Back to the Future, but I am not a collector of many of the props outside of that first opening sequence in the mall parking lot. And it's not because I dislike the other props, but it's just because there's only so much money you can earn in your lifetime. And I have to choose what things I want to buy and whatever. When we were in Tombstone, for example, I had decided that what I really wanted to do was find a hat that looked like the one Marty wore in part 3, but I never could find anything like that.
Let's give, I don't know, I haven't seen if he's actually here, but let's give a congrats to Analog Toys for hitting 19,000.
Oh, did that Analog hit 19K? Cool.
So congrats on that. Let's see, I got some questions up here. Rob DeLorean says, Michael, would you ever convert your DeLorean to a time machine replica?
No, I'm not going to convert my car. You have to add 250 holes in the stainless steel, which people say, well, it's reparable. It's like nobody's going to bother to repair those holes properly the way stainless needs to be fixed. You have to add about 700 pounds of aircraft junk onto the car, specifically and mostly over the engine compartment. It is a rear-engined car that already has problems with overheating anyway. And then you have to drill into all of the interior parts to lay all the cables and wires and the bulkhead, which then ruins your rear visibility. And then you have to add a backup camera. And then on top of that, your time circuits go over your air conditioning vents. So now you're not getting air circulation in the cabin, which would be hell on earth.
It's already hot enough in there.
Yeah, it's already hot enough. It is not something I want to do. I've sat in time machined DeLoreans. They are not comfortable to sit in. If you think you were cramped in a stock DeLorean, just wait till you sit in a time machine DeLorean. And then imagine trying to drive it. Even Michael J. Fox said that it was always a pain when he would shift and his knuckles would get scraped on the stuff they'd added to the console. I don't want to do that to that car. I like the car for what it is.
Yeah, Brenna's saying, I think the Flux is plenty. I agree. I
Yeah.
think that all that stuff just looks like garbage. And
Yeah.
the car, even though it's not my favorite style of car, I'm more of a muscle car kind of a person. For the stainless steel and the look and the line of the car, it's so nice to have it clean
Yes.
and crisp. And no, I've seen this question a bunch of times. No, this is not what Michael was wearing to the heavy metal concert, although it's similar.
Yeah, I didn't wear a Marty McFly costume to the heavy metal concert.
But he did wear those red and white tennis shoes and jeans and
Yeah, I've had these.
his
tennis
standard Michael uniform is what he wore.
Right.
So he was more in a Michael French costume than a Marty McFly costume.
Right.
Kellen asked, "Did you hear that Tom Holland actually tried to get a Back to the Future remake off the ground?"
Well, so did Zac Efron. Both of them have tried to get a Back to the Future remake off the ground, and I don't know why they keep trying that, because Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale are the only two people left with any class and sanity in Hollywood these days, and they're saying there's no point in remaking these movies. I agree.
I loved when we got to meet
Bob Gale. Yeah. We met Bob
cool.
Gale in Florence, Alabama, during a Back to the Future BTTF.com event in 2010, wasn't it?
It was 2010 or 2011. I can't recall.
And really nice guy.
The life preserver is now on the floor. It's quite warm in here with all these lights.
Oh, are people coming in late and not seeing?
Yeah, he has the jacket.
I'll put everything back on.
No, it's very hot. Like,
It is.
I'm sweating right now, and
people come in late and then they ask
but
the
yeah,
same questions.
he does. It's okay. So did you? This says, do you not have any Back to the Future toys?
As I said before, I have the Lego DeLorean. I have the Diamond Select Part 1 DeLorean. I used to have some of the Mini Mates DeLorean stuff, but I gave it away. I might get the Playmobil at some point. I have 2 of the reaction figures of Doc and Marty. But all that stuff came out after I acquired the car. And once I acquired the car, I felt like I had reached the peak of the mountain. And so I quickly, aside from autographs, which I collected, went around and got autographs from some of the stars of the original film. Aside from that, I didn't really prioritize that anymore, admittedly. So I have a selection of them. I would like to get the Playmobil DeLorean at some point. But I don't really go after Back to the Future toys as much. If they do a legit toy line at some point with, maybe some play sets and some vehicles, plural, like,
You want that train?
No, but like, for example, like some of the future cars or Biff's truck from, or not truck, his convertible. If they come up with things like that, then, which they won't, like a Hill Valley Square playset, then yeah, I'd be more interested in doing that. But I honestly feel like Back to the Future would have been a perfect Micro Machines toy line. I think because Back to the Future is about environments. It's about Hill Valley Square, changing all the time, whether it's the Old West or the future or the 50s or the 80s or whatever, and having the cars, I think that would have been more ideal than, say, a G.I. Joe style line. But that's just me.
I would defer to you on that. If you could go back to any time in history, where would you go?
I'd go to I'd go to World War II. I know that sounds like, wow, why would you do that? I don't know. That's just that's that. I feel like there was purpose then, and I know what I'd be all about there, and I feel like the clothes suit me better. So I would go to like 1939. That's where I'd go. You?
Me? Well, I do like the clothes from the 40s. I don't know if I'd really want to live during that time. It's a little scary. I mean, I know how it works out, but I mean, maybe I'd probably stay within the the 20th century. Just because, for us ladies, going back too much further than that's a little more scary. I think, I might go back far enough so that from the age I am to like however long I would live after that, if I lived to like a normal human age, that I wouldn't go much past where I am now, because I am not really looking forward to our current future.
Right.
So it's more about that, I think, than picking a time that I think whatever time you live in is cool for you. Like it's not going to feel the same as your nostalgic memories of a time when you were a kid.
Right.
So that's just my opinion. Melinda, do you have a Jennifer costume to go with Michael's Marty one? No, I don't. I don't feel like I look like Jennifer. My hair and I don't know. I just...
Melinda's never really been a costumer. That's not really her thing.
I've done it a few times, and there have been a few situations where I feel like, I can pull off certain things. There was one year at Dragon Con in particular that we did like 3 large cosplays that we did together.
Yeah.
And all 3 of those at the time, I felt like I was able to pull off with like my hair color and style and all of the different things. And with my age, like, I just feel like, the older you get, the weirder it is to try to costume as someone who's 20.
Right.
Like if you're 44.
Right.
So Scott, thank you very much. He says, not to get off topic, but I think this endless need to attempt remakes of movies that were already done right the first time is driven by creative bankruptcy. Good on Zemeckis for resisting it. Looking forward to your longer video. Yeah, we totally agree. Like, I think that, everyone said, oh, would you like to see a remake of whatever the end of that sentence is? No, I don't want to see any more remakes. I just, even if they're well done, I'm sick of it.
I think that corporations, their mindset is, because they don't create, they just manage inventories. They just look around and say, what do we have that we can use until it's threadbare, and then we'll go buy something else to use up until it's threadbare. They don't know how to actually make something from a blank page, and that's the real tragedy of it.
Vinkman says if Michael went back to 1939, he'd go to be part of the RAF and maybe try to pick up Superman #1 and Detective Comics #27.
That is very true.
That is very true.
That is very true. Yeah.
What kind of car wax do you use on a DeLorean?
You don't use a car wax. You use a barkeeper's friend. And DeLorean Motor Company in Houston also sells a spray polish that you can use. Frankly, I have found that as long as you keep your car garaged, which you should with a DeLorean or any classic car, I have found that most of the time I don't even have to treat the stainless steel. I just wipe the dust off with a wet rag every now and then, just making sure that I wipe it in that direction of the grain. And the car dries, and suddenly, you think you haven't made much of an effect, and then you see it dry and it's like gleaming. It's very user-friendly material as far as maintenance. I mean, I can see why John DeLorean wanted it that way, especially back in that time period for automobiles when rust and paint and Bondo were a real nightmare.
Epic Jason says, I'd probably go back to the 70s and experience the birth of blockbuster films. I wouldn't mind going back to the 60s or 70s, not necessarily because I'm like a secret boomer or anything. It's just more that like there was some cool stuff, I think, going on then. And the music was, especially in the 70s, particularly great in my opinion. So let's see. Did you know that Doc Brown was named Emmett because it's basically time in reverse?
I did not know that, but that is interesting.
Did you know that I have a really good friend who is legitimately named Emmett Brown and who is also a PhD, so he is Dr. Emmett Brown.
That's funny.
And I think that's awesome. All right, so do you own the 2015 self-lacing shoes?
No, I did not want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on those shoes when they went up for auction. It was for a good cause, but they didn't do it the right way. I think Nike should be ashamed of themselves for how they did that. They made it an elite item to get, and only the richest people on the planet could get them, and I think that's a shame.
Yeah. All right. So Matt Movie says, I just wanted to say oh, nope. Somehow. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's right. Okay, he says, I just want to say thank you for all these live streams. Always tons of fun. The Karate Kid Cobra Kai could be a fun topic for a future stream. That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah. We could do that.
I wouldn't actually mind. You keep trying to talk me into watching the later Karate Kid movies. Maybe you'd finally get me to... He tried to get me to watch Back to the Future 2 again, because I've only seen Back to the Future 2 one time. And I think it was after we met. Like, I don't know if I think I've seen parts of it, like, on TBS or something, or wherever,
Right.
if it was on TV, but never, like, sat down and watched the whole thing until we met. I'd seen the third one, and I almost wonder if maybe I saw it in the theater, but I can't recall. But the only one I remember is the first one.
I love all three. I mean, I don't have one to dog on. If you'd asked me 15 years ago, I'd have said that part 3 was disappointing, but I don't really feel that way now. I feel like part 3 is really, really solid.
I think it ages well.
Yeah, part 3 ages well. Part 3 is like a Timothy Dalton Bond film. People thought they didn't like it back then, but it's really, really good now.
Yeah, go back and rewatch it as an adult, and you might not necessarily, but you might have a different opinion of it. Several people asked about this a while back. Talk about the Walkman and the tape inside, and is it the correct tape inside? And
okay, first of all, the tape inside, no. The tape is just get a cassette tape that is black plastic or whatever it was. I can't remember what it looked like at the time. Put Van Halen on the label and be free. But as far as the actual Walkman is concerned, this is the correct AWA model. The only difference between this and the one in Back to the Future is that they changed the model number on it, because after they released the one that you saw in Back to the Future, that was the only color that you could get it in under that model number. Then they decided, we're going to offer this in additional colors. And when they did that, they simply changed the very tiny model number on the front. But this is the color combo that was identical to the one in Back to the Future. So that's an AWA Walkman, same one that he has in the film.
a lot of people are talking about Marty versus Morty.
I get it.
I will go ahead and say this: Tim Witten and Aaron both love Rick and Morty a lot. Michael and Tim Witten actually made us sit down and watch at least one, if not two episodes when we were on a crew retreat.
Right.
So we were totally a captive audience. And he and Aaron were just like loving it. And Michael and I were kind of just looking at each other going...
I mean, yeah, there's parts of that show that are funny, but I haven't sifted through it. I mean, one of my favorite quotes in modern times I found out came from Rick and Morty, which is the whole thing of, you know, your boos mean nothing to me. I've seen what makes you cheer. You know, there's some funny stuff in the show. It's just a matter of me sitting down and actually giving it the time of day. And again, time being what it is limited. So
Well, to me, it feels similar to Archer, which a lot of people love. There are lines from that show that I have friends who quote them all the time. And when my friends quote them, they're very funny. But when I see the show, I don't find it funny.
Right.
Like, I don't enjoy the tone or the pacing or anything about the show. I don't know.
yeah.
It's like the thing where I can't articulate what it is, that it just doesn't resonate with me. I don't think that you suck if you like it. And if you like it, by all means, like it and watch it and whatever. It's just not my thing. And I think Rick and Morty is particularly... people say it's dark. I don't know if dark is the right word. I think it's just very... I can't find the right word. It's kind of hateful.
Yeah, it can be.
On
Yeah.
a level that I just don't know if we need extra fuel to that fire in the world right now. So, not to be a Pollyanna, because I mean, I love heavy metal and horror movies, but I'm just saying like there's a tipping point. So it's a little weird. That's just my opinion though. Vinkman, thank you. He says, I'm hoping Michael will eventually do a Superman-centric live stream. In fact, today is his 82nd anniversary.
Yeah, I probably should do a Superman-themed live stream.
That would be great.
That's not a bad idea, Venkman.
Yeah.
That's now officially on the schedule. I'll be doing that.
I like
Thank
that.
you for thank you for reminding me that I should do that.
Yeah. So someone said you guys have crew retreats. Well, we don't have lots of crew retreats. We just had one where we all kind of got a giant cabin, and each family had a floor, and we stayed there for like 2 nights and just hung out, and we didn't work.
Right.
But it was just fun to like hang out and not work, because
Right.
most of the time when we all get together, it's work. So anyways, Melinda is a Karen. I don't think so.
Yeah, Melinda's not a Karen, guys. If you need to go back and
I am a Karen, though, when it comes to my favorite murder. So if I were going to be a Karen or a Georgia, I would definitely be a Karen. So I'm going to go ahead and take that as a compliment. So let's see. I've got some other questions over here. Do you collect autographs? You said you did, but do you want to talk more about the autographs that you've gotten?
I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna go take it off the wall or anything like that.
What about the journal that you? Where is that?
We can't find it.
Oh, that's right. That's a travesty. Tell that story.
I don't want to tell that story.
Michael has this amazing journal that he kept from when he got the DeLorean, and he wrote in it like his journey of driving, because he flew up to like Connecticut on a one-way plane ticket. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this story before, and got the DeLorean sight unseen, and then drove it all the way back down to Atlanta. And that journey that he took by himself in this brand new car that he had, he didn't really know, was sort of documented in this really cool journal that you kept, and subsequently had gone around and gotten a number of autographs, including Bob Gale and Leah Thompson and several other people that I can't think of right now, autographed in there. And
James
I remember
Tolkien and Claudia Wells and a number of them.
Leah Thompson was so interested, and I remember when we met her at DragonCon, and you put that on the table in front of her, and she was like, "Wait, what?" And she was so like, she's such a nice person. If you ever get the chance to meet her, but anyway.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I don't think I've lost it, but we have misplaced it in the house, and I have yet to find that journal. So
it's here somewhere. There's no way we would have gotten rid of it. So, so to that point, yes, he has met several people from the movies, all the people he just mentioned.
Claudia Wells and James Tolkien, who played the original Jennifer and Superintendent Strickland, they both have sat in my car. So I have pictures of them posing with my DeLorean. And then I've met Leah Thompson and Christopher Lloyd and Bob Gale. I have not met Michael J. Fox or Tom Wilson, though I do have their legit autographs to me from Official Pics.
Or Crispin Glover.
I haven't met Crispin Glover, no.
I just want to meet him because he just seems like a wacky dude. Melinda, what muscle cars do you like? I really love a classic Challenger, like early, maybe 71 Challenger. But there are really very few muscle cars that I dislike. My first car was a Camaro, and so I really like Camaros, especially like 80s, 70s, and 80s Camaros. I love Challengers. I like Chargers okay, but Challengers are my preferred. I like Mustangs, but usually sort of the beefier ones, like the Challenger, are my favorite.
Right.
Can we talk about, someone says I call him Commander Slacker when I see him on Top Gun. We went to DragonCon a few years back, and he was there.
2011, something like that.
Yeah, and he was up on a stage doing a presentation with several other people from the film, and
Christopher Lloyd.
yeah, Christopher Lloyd. It was supposed to be also Leah Thompson, but her
Which-
plane had been delayed, and so it was
Right.
just the two of them up on the stage. And man, they do this thing at DragonCon, if you've never been, with the celebrity panels where the audience just gets up and asks questions. And sometimes, man, the questions people ask, do us a favor. If you ever go to a convention and there are celebrities on the stage and they're asking the audience to like come up to a microphone and ask questions, please, for the love of God, don't start your question with, what was your favorite?
Right.
Like, as an actor or a director or whatever, asking them what their favorite scene in a movie is sort of shows that you don't have a good understanding of their perspective of the movie, because for them, filming it's not the same as you watching it. So,
Right.
and it's the same question they've been asked 5 million times. So if you can get them to talk about something that they actually are interested in, and maybe can touch on something that isn't often asked, you're going to get a more interesting and interested response from them, and they'll be so grateful. You can see their eyes light up when you ask them about something else besides, what was your favorite scene? What was your favorite line? Who was your favorite actor to work with? You know, even who was your favorite actor to work with might be more interesting. But so you got a great, like, all these people were asking James Tolkan to call him a slacker and all this stuff, and of course he's very kind and he did it, but you asked them all like some really good questions, and I mean, his whole face lit up. It was amazing to watch.
Well, it's because you're asking him about his craft rather than, please repeat that line that we all won't let you forget. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So did you ever play the Back to the Future games on NES or the Telltale game?
Yeah, I rented it. It was terrible. The Telltale game I own, I liked that one a lot. I have that one from its original PC days. I've been meaning to get it for the PS4 just to have the sort of the compiled version of it. But I have the PC game on hard copy. Yeah, I supported the Telltale game when it was being developed, and I was very happy with it. It was a good game.
Wildstar says, sounds like Melinda's a Vanishing Point fan, perhaps. I did like Vanishing Point, and I did watch the movie just for the car.
Yeah.
That was the best part of the movie.
Right.
It was a very 70s movie, for sure.
Yeah, that was a very strange film.
It was weird. It was sort of in line with some of the other weird movies we've watched recently. Let's see. Melinda, you are a bit of a movie car buff. Why do you think we have so much appeal to movie cars of the past? What is the magic? I would say that it's because back then cars were more of a distinctive, cool-looking thing, whereas now cars are so practical and homogenized. They all kind of look the same, and they're all not built for you to have your own personal style so much as they are all built to haul your family around in with 47 children, which I understand is a practical consideration for many people. But, you know, they're marketed to families. So it's gone back to, you know, in the 50s, cars were family cars. The advent of the muscle car was like, you know, partially the John DeLorean effect, because he was the one of the early pioneers of this idea that we could have things like muscle cars where it's all about style, and it's about, you know, at that time, honestly, it was about men being able to go out and like be young before they're married, before they're tied down with kids and all that stuff, and look awesome and have a fast car that looks, or just a really cool looking distinctive car that stands out in a parking lot from all of the other crap. And we've kind of moved away from that being a thing for whatever reasons. And so now everything looks like either a Toyota Camry or a minivan. And I mean, people call them SUVs, but they're minivans. They're just big rolling bricks, and you can like the look of them, but their primary function, in my opinion, is just comfort and stowing crap and putting car seats in and out, which we didn't have to do back then. And so everything, all the safety stuff that has to be in cars now prevents some of the lines from being able to be as elegant, I guess. And they're manufactured out of plastic instead of metal.
Right.
There's just so many things about them, and they are safer, but they just don't look as cool. So that will always be a time capsule, I believe. What do you have anything else to add to that?
Well,
or?
I also think that the cars were just more front and center. Nowadays, they don't want to make stories that center around vehicles. I think if Hollywood could get away with it, they'd probably make movies centered around specific models of cell phones at this point.
Well, it's because the younger generation doesn't care
Yeah,
about cars. They
don't
don't see them as a symbol of freedom, like we
right,
do.
and they also don't see them. Also, they haven't grown up with any cars that truly look cool.
Right. I mean, aside from the Challenger, name like a modern car that looks distinctive, that really stands out. And I mean, to
Right.
me, none of them do. Maybe the Jeep. Still,
Well, but even
even
that-
even Jeeps are now being made mostly 4 doors. You were just
Right.
talking about it the other
Yeah,
day. It's like
I would say like the only cars that are really distinctive these days are exotics, which aren't affordable to 99% of people, and all those exotics are starting to look the same amongst their
Yeah.
exotic group. Like, tell me the difference between a Jag, a Maserati, and an Aston Martin these days visually at speed, and you'd be hard pressed to tell me. I mean,
yeah, and I mean, to me, as soon as a company starts making an SUV version,
right,
a minivan version of what they are, they've kind of lost their edge.
right.
They've
They're-
become a dadmobile.
They're done. Yeah.
That's it. I know this isn't a popular thing, and a lot of people have kids and blah blah blah. But the whole point of a muscle car is not for kids. It's not for
Right.
hauling your family around. It's to have like a cool look.
And
so.
that's why she's not a Karen, because she drives a muscle car. She doesn't.
People are just trying to be trolls. Whatever. I don't care. So let's see. Other questions. I have them pulled up over here. What series, film, or TV has the best time travel rules? That's a Beta Ray Bob question. Good question.
I feel like
It's not Terminator.
I feel like Back to the Future Part 1 has the tightest time travel rules. I can't think of a film, whether you're talking about the Time Machine. Time Machine is not bad. But if you're talking about Time After Time with David Warner and
Cyndi Lauper.
Malcolm McDowell, the one directed by Nicholas Meyer. I think it's Time After Time or something like that.
Wasn't Christopher Reeve in something called Somewhere
in Time, but I don't know how the time travel rules worked in that.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
I would say Back to the Future Part 1 because they bother to explain it and then they demonstrate it.
People are asking, what did you think of Looper? I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen Looper. I mean, I haven't completely alienated myself from the Rian Johnson library. We just watched Knives Out.
Somebody asked me about Knives Out, and I did want to give a quick reaction to that movie, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So we watched the movie. I think, my opinion is, it's very well made.
Mm-hmm.
The acting is superb. So many aspects about it are great. The biggest shortcoming with that movie is the way you said it is the best, which is it's marketed as a whodunit, but it's a howdunit.
Right.
So the whole time you're sitting there like wanting it to be like a Poirot style, him figuring it out and having the big reveal meeting where everyone's sitting in the room and he says, and it was you. And that
Right.
doesn't happen
That doesn't happen.
because you know from the beginning who did it, basically.
It's not even basically. That's where the tension is.
You keep thinking that you're going to find out that it wasn't who you think it is, but you never do. And this is kind of a spoiler, but it's almost like a helpful spoiler.
Yeah,
I don't know,
like you just need to be set up to
You just need to
understand
know,
that
yeah.
movie is not a mystery movie so much as it is a how did this person pull this off kind of movie.
Yes,
Yeah.
and how did this occur?
How did this occur? But there's no mystery at the very beginning of the movie as to who the players are.
Yeah.
None whatsoever.
Juan says Clue did it better.
Yeah.
Well, Clue still you didn't know who did it though.
Right. Clue.
Clue was better just in the sense of it was an actual whodunit, which, I personally really enjoy trying to figure out who did it. So much like it's the difference between watching Poirot and watching Columbo.
Right.
When you're watching Columbo, you know from the very first scene, the first scene of the show is always whoever did it doing it.
Right.
And then watching Columbo just nail them.
Right.
Which,
Right.
you know, you either like it or you don't. All right, so have you heard about the Back to the Future musical in the UK?
Yes, I have.
This person's Rob DeLorean says, we went before the lockdown and I met Zemeckis and Alan Silvestri.
Yeah, the guy who did the music.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's great. I've never been one to go to staged musical adaptations of movies, and I also
Oh, is that what it is? Like a full on?
yeah, it's
Wow.
Back to the Future the musical. Like it's, you know.
I would go. I love a good musical though, much more than Michael does.
I also had no interest in seeing that Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark Broadway musical, whatever it was. First of all, that is the stupidest title I've ever heard. Turn Off the Dark. Can you please tell me what committee came up with that title? Like, and then everybody was swinging into the sets and getting injured and stuff, and yeah.
So, yeah, they're saying don't watch Cats. I don't intend to. I've heard horrible things from people who love musicals. So, Matt says, Melinda, are you more Earth Angel or Johnny Be Good kind of girl? I am way more Johnny Be Good. The Earth Angel, like, that style of music is what my dad always listened to is when I was a kid. Not my favorite.
Yeah.
Just, this is a question totally off topic, but it says, hi guys, do you recommend using like Armor All on vintage vehicles? Tim just deleted it. You were going so fast. Do you, I don't remember what it says, but it said something to the effect of, do you recommend using them and to bring out the gloss and to prevent them from drying and to bring out the gloss and the shine?
Depends on if you want gloss and shine on your toy. I mean,
isn't there mixed reviews about putting it on your dashboard and stuff?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I don't really know how glossy I want my action figures to be. I would just rather use some sort of plastic stabilizer or restorer, that just stabilizes the plastic and leave it at that. I'm not as interested in having all of my action figures gleam like the shining sun.
I think it would be cool. I'm kidding.
Well, then go right ahead.
No. Because I would be doing that to your...
No, you wouldn't. You can do that to your toys, your ponies.
I don't want to do that to my ponies.
Exactly.
They're final.
Right, and these toys also do not need to gleam. They're fine.
You gleam. Do you like Pantera, Melinda? Yes, I do. The very first concert that I ever saw in person as a 16-year-old was Skid Row Pantera. And Pantera was opening for Skid Row, weirdly enough. And although I will say I think Skid Row is a little bit underrated, people see them as a hair band, but I think they're pretty talented. Anyway, so Phil Anselmo was like, I was in the front row. I pushed my way to the front row. It was like pit open, like shove your way to the front. And I got up there and he's all singing and I touched his chest and he's all sweaty and I was like, oh, I'm never washing my hand again as a 16-year-old. It was great.
That's gross.
It was awesome. It was a great memory. Thanks for bringing that up. Scuba Pete says, did either of you get to ride Back to the Future, the ride at Universal Studios? I remember summer of 91 just being in awe of the theming, not to mention the cool ride tech.
Yeah, I rode it twice in the summer of 94 when we went to Universal Studios. Great ride. I wasn't sure at the time if I liked the ride more or less than Star Tours from a motion perspective. My family tried to give me crap about that, saying that I was just defending Star Wars and Back to the Future was a better ride. But honestly, I remember sitting in the front of that DeLorean and, like Melinda said many times, when I watch a movie, I will look at the edges of the screen, quote unquote, and I was invested in the ride, but I also took a moment to look over here and look over here, and I could see like 17 other DeLoreans, positioned so more people, in various places so more people could ride the ride. And in Star Tours, you didn't have that. In Star Tours, you were completely locked in to one vehicle, and there was no way to break the illusion, which I thought was a little more effective.
Jody, thank you for the super chat. Just cuts. So let's see. Loom Movie says, "Hi, I would like to ask what the status on the Star Trek Playmates review is. Thank you."
I'm still trying to get a few parts and pieces, but then I will
Bits and bobs.
And then I will do it. It will come after I finish Robotech Part 4. I'll probably do Inhumanoids after Robotech Part 4, and then I will eventually. But again, don't describe that as Part 2. The Star Trek video I did before was not a Part 1. It was just a Star Trek video. So there was no intended Part 2. It's just
kind of like the original Star Wars. It's just...
Stop messing with their heads.
Why? So this one says, Michael, where did you get the Superman red shirt that mimics the cape with the yellow S on the back that you wore in the Batman animated series video unboxing from years ago?
I also wore that in the Superpowers video feature. If you want to see it there, I made it. I bought a shirt at Eddie Bauer that was primary red back in 1998, and it did not have a back pleat. And I was like, ooh, this is perfect. And then I had a friend of mine at the time make me the big yellow S and do the embroidered black stitching over the yellow S, and then we sewed it onto the shirt. And that I made it myself. And why Warner Brothers has never offered a shirt like that blew me away. It was mind-boggling.
Vinkman says, Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark is a hot mess, but the song A Freak Like Me Needs Company kicks serious butt and will get stuck in your head for days. Is it as catchy as some of the songs from, now it just went right out of my head. It's the Joss Whedon, Doogie Howser guy.
Neil Patrick Harris?
That, and the musical, the short one with,
Dr. whatever?
Yeah, I can't. It's just...
Wow.
It is catchy, but I swear to God, like, it's one of those things that I try to push out of my head, because if I get that song stuck in my head, it will be in my head for, like, 4 weeks. And, so... You couldn't think of it either.
I couldn't, but it wasn't like you exactly set me on a good path to figure it out. I don't care about Joss Whedon stuff, so...
You used to.
I used to care about Firefly, and that was it.
Fine.
I got sick of people talking about that dumb musical short. I got sick of people talking about it. Absolutely tired of it. I was like...
Dr. Horrible.
I'm sick of that. Yeah.
I like it.
Ugh.
I don't care. I like Dollhouse. I like all of it. I don't care.
I'm not saying that you should think like me.
Well, I don't. So it works out.
Read a question.
What did you think of the Lego Ideas Voltron set from Steve Cook, who gave us a very nice super chat?
Steve, thanks for the super chat. We did a whole video on it. If you look up RetroBlasting Voltron Lego, it will come up, and you can see my dedicated thoughts to it.
Laundry Day. I don't think it was Laundry Day. It's the one where he's talking about how everything is terrible, and he's walking around looking at the world and only seeing the bad, and she's walking around looking at the world and only seeing the good, and they harmonize. Oh, it's fucking great.
Did you just really F-bomb in the middle of a
whispered
live
it.
stream?
I whispered it. Sorry, a little bit of my true personality came out there. Anthony
you know
says,
what's going to happen if we can't rely on you to maintain a certain standard, we're going to have to recast you with somebody else.
Good luck during the lockdown. Anthony says, what is the ideal shelf height distance for toy displays? I guess it depends on the toys you're putting on them.
Well, for me, what I tried to do was find an average.
Yes, RetroBlasting is not a children's channel.
It's not, but
everyone's telling me to swear more, so thank you.
Yeah. Get all of our videos demonetized. That'll work. See, YouTube forces you on a really frustrating balance beam. It's like, don't be too kid friendly, but don't be too adult. And it's like, otherwise we will punish you.
But we can encourage you all to drink, and I think that that's what really matters.
Wow. Anyway, so the shelf heights that I have on these shelves, they are not adjustable, but we lucked out and found these cases that I think that's about what, 12 to 14 inches between shelves? Is that right?
Looks like 12.
12-ish,
maybe,
12 to
maybe
14,
13,
something like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That served me well for the vast majority of our action figures.
Well, that's why we had to have this,
right.
where you literally, it has the pegs and we can adjust the shelves to whatever height they need to be. So, any unboxings? Yeah, we do have one small unboxing, but we still have about 30 minutes left if we want to continue the live stream that long. I think we typically go now for 2 hours. So, Object of Hate. Yes, this is a laptop that's a Dell XPS 15. Good eye. Let's see. Marty McFrench. That's pretty funny. Michael Johnson says, what are you doing to pass the time in lockdown? I'm listening to audiobooks and working on craft projects.
I'm just making videos. I mean,
He's just working nonstop.
I'm just working. I mean,
I am doing craft projects and listening to podcasts instead of audiobooks. So I've been pretty obsessively listening to The Dollop. And if you are not familiar, you should go check that out. They are an American history podcast that is comedy, and they're very funny. I'm also listening to This Week in Virology, which is, they talk really in depth with experts about viruses, specifically the COVID-19 situation. It sort of helps me keep up to date with all of the latest journal publications and real world, like, they have medical doctors, they have virologists, they have epidemiologists. So it's very sciencey. So if you like that kind of thing, and then I will knit while I'm doing that. I'm also expanding out back into crochet again, maybe making some larger projects like blankets. I've got an origami book arriving soon, so hopefully I'll be folding all sorts of cool little paper cranes and stuff.
I've really been getting back into, and I need to be. I want to be reading history as part of it, but I've been watching a lot of World War II stuff just to enjoy myself. I've gotten back into the TV show Combat that I've always loved. I ended up getting a bunch of... I did the action figures that you saw. I did the prop replicas recently. I bought some prop replicas from the TV show Combat that I'm really enjoying right now. That's kind of how I'm passing the time while I'm making videos as well.
Jody says, do those craft projects include custom hats for Grimmy? Yes, possibly. I was thinking that, I was trying to figure out the best way to do that. Maybe either with felt, or I'm not sure what kind of textured product that I want to use, like fabric or whatever to use to make those hats. So I'm still looking around for that. Chris Smith, thank you for the super chat. He says, F&A, Melinda, keep it up. When can we look forward to the next Dreamland? I've been in talks with Aaron about that. I don't know if he's actually here with us today. He was out doing yard work, he said today.
Yes.
So, but we are talking about how we want to try to record the next one. I have a really cool topic for the next Dreamland. So I'm excited about doing that. We just, honestly, we're trying to get, sometimes it's like when you've stalled out for a little while and you've waited, it's hard to make yourself just like dig back in and start doing it again, especially when you have to totally change the way you do it, because normally Aaron comes over and we record it live, and we can't do that. So now we have the additional fun of like trying to figure out how to record it so the sound quality is still really good. But we are not dead in the water. We're just being lazy. Kal-El says, love the channel. Keep up the awesome work. Thank you very much for that super chat. Let's see. Do you know if any other car models were considered for the time machine in Back to the Future?
No, they were going to decide between their original concept was a refrigerator. That's not a joke. And then they realized a refrigerator wasn't mobile, so it didn't provide for good screenwriting scenes and tension. And also, they realized they didn't want children trying to get into abandoned refrigerators to pretend to be time travelers. That's quotes from them. So they made it a car, and they needed a car that looked space age because they wanted the car to look futuristic in the 50s to freak out the farmer and his family. And the DeLorean was the perfect candidate because of the doors and the stainless steel and everything like that. But yeah, and the car was already out of production by that point. Yeah, I have visited some of the filming locations because I was privileged enough to take a VIP tour of the Universal Studios backlot in California, not the theme park, but the actual filming backlot of their studio complex. And not and I and it normally when you go to that backlot, you're on a tram and then you just kind of drive through and that's it. But this was a VIP tour, and I got to get out at Hill Valley Square and take a look at the courtyard and the building and the street where Marty races the DeLorean to the lightning bolt, and all the buildings that were the cafe and all that kind of stuff. And then I ran over. I think I've told this story before. I spotted the very sad remains of the white wall tired DeLorean time machine from part 3 over in the Fleet Vehicles parking lot. And this was in 2001, and I ran over there and got pictures of it. It was in a sorry state. And then that car was since auctioned off, and it is now fully restored, and it is the only screen used Back to the Future time machine that is in private hands. So, I saw it when. Oh, and I've also been to the Gamble House where they filmed Doc's 1950s home. I was there because that's in Pasadena. I visited that as well. But I have not been to Marty's house or the mall parking lot or any of those places.
Juan says, Melinda, aside from knitting, have you dabbled into plastic canvas projects? I think plastic canvas RetroBlasting keychains and your knitted projects would be hot items at a RetroBlasting Etsy shop. I don't know what plastic canvas projects are. I'll have to look that up. But wow, that would be a lot of pressure to knit something fast enough to actually sell them online. There were several other questions here that I just lost because the screen flipped. So sorry about that. Do you own any guitar from the movie? No, we do not.
No, I don't own either of the famous guitars from the film. I'm not very musically inclined anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, I am, but not with a guitar. Guitar like melts my brain when I try to think about how to play it. Michael, you got the Walkman from Back to the Future, but do you have the hairdryer?
No, I don't have the hairdryer.
How was the Night Court marathon?
It's still going. We're in season 5, and
yes.
we'll be headed all the way through season 9 or whatever it is. So we're gonna keep watching it through the weekend.
Map Film Production says, Melinda and Michael, since you had such an in-depth answer about movie cars, do you think you will do a live stream on movie and TV cars from the past or present?
Well, we did a whole DragonCon presentation about it, which you can watch on the YouTube channel. So if you do RetroBlasting DragonCon,
we could do
vehicles.
Like a just a freewheeling, pun intended.
Wow.
Live stream topic about cars in general, where we could just sort of talk more randomly about things like Vanishing Point and some of the other movie cars that not just limited to the 80s, because there were a lot of cool cars throughout history, and then we could bring in some of the toys a little bit more and stuff like that. So that's not a bad idea, and we have talked about doing that before, so maybe we will put that on the list. It's not a bad idea. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I feel like there's another super chat. Jody says, hopefully a small comfort to the nightmare of seeing a decaying DeLorean. I'm not sure what that means, but maybe I missed something.
When I told the story about Back to the Future Part 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Vinkman says, aside from the Back to the Future DeLorean, what are some of your other favorite vehicles from TV, movies, comics, and other media?
Well, my favorite movie vehicle of all time in any film franchise or anything is the refit Enterprise from Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Wrath of Khan in Part 3. I love the movie rendition of the original Enterprise. That is my favorite movie vehicle ever. As far as grounded real world vehicles go, I mean, the probably my favorite real world vehicle that's been in a movie is Timothy Dalton's car in The Living Daylights, the 1987 Aston Martin Vantage. I just think that is an amazing car, and it might be sacrilege to say, but if I knew that I could get that car tomorrow and could afford it and all that kind of stuff, I would sell the DeLorean to get that car. That would be my favorite car of all time.
I really like Kit from Knight Rider a lot, and a good friend of ours has one of the cars from the show, like not like one that was actually, I believe, used in the show, which is really cool. And I'd love to see his car. It's in beautiful condition. And then the other car that I really like, and I know this is trite and whatever, but I don't care, is I really do like the car from Supernatural. I think it's a really cool looking car. And weirdly, even though this isn't a muscle car, I really like the car that's in Sarah Jane Smith Adventures.
Oh, the Nissan Figaro.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a really cute little car. It's not a muscle car, but it's a unique looking
Yeah, I'd
car.
love to own that car.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And another one, this is another one that's coming to mind, is Giles's car from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I can't recall the make and model of it, but it's a really weird old, possibly French car, but it's very weird, just a weird looking car.
Right.
I don't remember if I read this, so just to be sure, Kal-El, thank you for the super chat. He says, love the channel, keep up the awesome work. I was scrolling back through to make sure I hadn't missed any super chats.
Yeah.
So we got those. I don't know how to say this. XE Ennial says, I own an 87 Camaro IROC Z. Yeah, I had a 83 Berlinetta with the T-tops and all that stuff. So that was my first car. It was really awesome. Probably a Citroen. Yeah, it looks like a Citroen, so maybe that's what it is. Jeff says, my favorite is the Firefly ship. The cool windows on top and spinning back end.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, the only problem with that is it's very hard to get a model of it unless you buy the Scrabble game. Honestly.
Monkey Boy, thank you for the super chat. He says, can I get another Mark Wahlberg impression, please? Just work it into the conversation.
I mean, wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you like, I mean, it's sick, bro, but you like built a time machine out of a DeLorean? I mean, that's not really working for me. I need to think
He really has to kind of like get into it,
right?
Like a little bit. Maybe watch a little bit of Wahlberg.
Well, I also had an allergy attack this morning, so that didn't help.
I was just listening to a dollop.
Sick, bro. It's sick.
I was just listening to a dollop episode
Sitting
about
there telling me that you're gonna go back in time and like do it with your mom. That's disgusting, bro. It's disgusting.
It was about the Boston police riots and from like 1918, 1919. And I was wishing that I could get that Mark Wahlberg accent into that particular episode of the dollop. It would have been hilarious. Mike, do you like the Porsche 944?
I like the 928. The 944, I'm trying to remember, is that the one where the headlights are actually covered when they're down? Because the 928 is the one where they're visible but they're flat and then they kind of raise up. But that's because I love Mask and I love the Gloria Baker car, the Shark. So.
I just don't like Porsches. Dave, thanks for the super chat. He says, what do you folks think of Flea's cameo in Back to the Future?
I think he's a funny actor, and I think he was effective in his role in the film. I also thought he was funny in Son-in-Law for the 5 seconds he was in it with Pauly Shore.
Nope, that's not bringing up anything in the old memory.
Wow. Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Nope. Flea was in Back to the Future?
Yes, he was in Back to the Future Part 2 and
Part
3.
2. Yeah, see, you say Back to the Future, and I think the first one, and I'm like, I don't think so. The others are just not the same as the first one.
Flea played his boss in the future. He was there.
His boss, really?
Yeah.
Monkey Boy is loving your Wahlberg. You should just do the rest of the podcast.
No, because I don't do it that well.
I like
it. It's mock-worthy is what it is.
Tim Ward says, I don't know who Flea is. Flea is the bass player from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
He's in the Back to the Future Part 2 as
he
Marty's
is
boss.
Awesome.
Or not the boss that fires him, but the one that gets him involved in. He plays Needles, who gets him involved in the thing that gets him fired within like 15 minutes. What's so funny?
Tim's just saying thanks for the clarification. Yeah, I mean, so I remember Flea, who was also with Anthony Kiedis in some other movie. You guys, I'm sure, will know what it is. Some kind of like where they were in a car, like in a truck. And it seems like George Carlin was also in whatever that movie was. And I can't recall what it was. But I think it was in the 90s. So it was after Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which is my favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers album, if you want to know. I know every single word to that entire album. It's amazing. So while I don't know that Flea was in Back to the Future 2 and 3, I do know all of the words to that entire album. So I feel like Point Break, people are saying. You're right. He was in Point Break. Yeah, I knew there was an extra reason that I love that movie. I mean, it's got Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze and Flea and people wearing Ronald Reagan masks and crazy president masks while running into a bank and surfing. I mean, it's just got so many elements. Early Red Hot Chili Peppers is great. Yeah, of course.
There's a super chat there.
There's no question, but thank you, Mega Pork Chop Express. You just wanted me to say that, didn't you?
Pork Chop Express is from Big Trouble in Little China. That's the name of his truck. Jack Burton's truck.
That's why I love you. You explain all of the reference culture to me.
Wow.
I explain things to you, you just don't care, because there are always weird references to things that don't matter.
You mean like what?
Like who Flea is. Do you know who Prince is?
Yes, I know who Prince is.
Do you guys get that joke? Do you know who Prince is? Shout it out if you know that joke. Tim says that I explain things to him. Marius says, will you be doing another Orange Seat episode soon?
Yes, I will be doing a new Zodak episode, hopefully before the end of the month.
Yes, Blake, you're right. Anthony Kiedis was not in Point Break. There was another movie that I'm thinking of that's not Point Break, but I recall that he was in Point Break. So let's see. RetroBlasting, I know one of you were into collecting toys based on Lara Croft from Tomb Raider, but is there any interest in collecting or accepting toys based on Duke Nukem and or Primal Rage?
I played the Duke Nukem 3D game when it was out on PC in the 90s.
The Chase! Sorry, that was it. The Chase. Thank you. Please continue.
What are we talking about?
That's the movie that Anthony Kiedis and Flea were in.
Okay.
It was a car movie. It was... Anyway, The Chase.
You literally were like, Eureka!
Christy Swanson, I think, was in that movie. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm not as jazzed by arcade beat 'em ups of the 90s. When I say beat 'em ups, I shouldn't say beat 'em ups. Versus games. I wasn't a big Mortal Kombat, Primal Rage type of player. Duke Nukem was definitely more in my wheelhouse because it was more of a first-person shooter, and it was funny and irreverent, and Yeah. So I guess my answer to the question is half and half. Yeah, Duke Nukem, yes. Primal Rage, probably not so much.
Can I say that one of my favorite parts of these live streams is me making obscure references and seeing like who can fill in the holes in my memory to say it's this, and then it's like, yeah, it feels like we're having a real conversation. Yeah, people are yelling out all the other crazy people that are in that movie. Henry Rollins is in that. Um, who was it that I saw up above? The porn guy. Ron Jeremy is in that movie.
Wow.
Charlie Sheen is in that movie. Just a whole bunch of crazy in that movie. I gotta go rewatch that movie now. Um, let's see. Best motion picture enterprise toy.
Well, there's the very obscure Mego Enterprise toy that I think only ended up being sold in Canada, which I've only seen pictures of. That's supposed to be more accurate than the South Bend Enterprise, which is the one that I have in the video, which is right over there by Melinda in the case. Um, the best motion picture Enterprise toy so far, I guess, would go to the Art Asylum Diamond Select electronic one that came out a few years back, because it's just the most accurate. It has sound effects. It has, I I would pick that because you don't have to build it yourself. So yeah, I guess I would pick the Art Asylum Diamond Select one if you forced me to pick one. But obviously that's not vintage, so.
Eric says, I wonder why there was no V'ger playset.
Well, it would just be a satellite in the middle of a lot of light panels. There wasn't a lot of play value in the motion picture toys, and I understand that people like the lady sitting next to me, very much defend that movie as intellectual sci-fi, and it is, and it's a very smart film, and it's well written and all that kind of stuff. But it is not toyetic. It is not a movie that, and I'm not saying it should have been, but they just kept missing the boat because Wrath of Khan was very toyetic and they made nothing for it. So, whoops.
Beta Ray Bob says the chase could be a future Dreamland episode. I think that's a great idea too. If you guys haven't seen Freaked, reviewed by Red Letter Media on their channel on YouTube, you should check that out. That was a great movie that they point out is out of print now. It stars Alex Winter, who was, of course, Bill and Ted guy, also in The Lost Boys, a bunch of other stuff. But it starred him, and it was such a weird movie. And I did see it back in the 90s because I came across it in the video rental store when I was in college. And I was like, what the heck is this? It has all these people in it. Keanu Reeves, all these people are in that movie. You should definitely, if you haven't seen or know anything about it, check out Red Letter Media's thing. Not that they need me promoting them, but I really enjoyed that as well as a thing to do. So let's see. Now people are debating whether Flea was in Point Break. I think it may have been Anthony Kiedis that was in Point Break, and Flea has been in other stuff. But either way, I enjoy Flea. I just don't know his entire film appearance work. He does do a lot of weird stuff like that, though. Yeah, the Freaked soundtrack was just recently released on vinyl for the first time, and apparently, it's really cool. And there was a show that was on MTV back in the early '90s, during the time when like Liquid Television was coming out, and I remembered seeing it. I saw a couple episodes. I don't think there are that many episodes of that show that Alex Winter starred in. So, could my mentioning of Red Letter Media become the next drinking game? Possibly. Red Letter Media and or The Dollop. Anytime I mention either one of those, take a drink. So let's see. Michael Belinda, what was your go-to arcade game back in the day?
My go-to, as I said in the recent Star Wars Follies, was Star Wars Arcade. And then when it finally hit, the X-Men beat 'em up from Konami. Those were my two go-tos in the arcade for sure.
I only ever really played Galaga in the arcade. Idiot Box, that's what it was. So, yeah, I think we're winding down. Do you want to open the one
I
thing that
shall. I have to get a blade.
Here's your last chance. Matt says, I love Red Letter Media, especially Jack. That's Michael's favorite character as well. I like them all. I do kind of love Jay a lot. Usually he and I agree on most things, but I really like all of those guys a lot. Eric says, did you guys play the ridiculous LJN NES Back to the Future game? Michael says no. I, of course, didn't because I never played an NES, so... Michael's digging for a cutty tool. Okay, guys, ask me a question. Let's see. I scroll up. You found it.
Yeah, that's why I can't keep a toolbox organized, because you need the thing that you just buried.
So this is from Timothy Ward.
It is. It's been sitting out in purgatory, getting de-coronified.
Matt says, how are you getting on with the scarf? Actually, really well. I've really started working on it a lot, and so I am probably 2/3 of the way done with it. So that's exciting.
What?
So this has a fun story behind it.
You know the story behind this?
Yes, I do.
What the... What? A carded ham bone McGillicuddy. Carded.
So, the pieces of that were made by, or were from Fan Strike Back. But Tim Ward made it.
Oh my gosh.
And so when you got the one, the other, was it last week?
Yeah.
He was going, no!
Well,
and I had to have a whole conversation with him, like, why were you guys yelling about it? Because apparently Tim and Aaron knew about it too.
Well,
and they were all just like, oh no. Which I was like, it's nice to have a loose one and a carded one. So yeah,
this is
perfect.
amazing. This is amazing.
There's an extra bit in the box, he says.
Yeah, Fan Strike Back. There's also a pair of yellow lightsabers and a blaster. Yeah, no, this is awesome. This is hilarious.
I love how it says RetroBlasting at the top.
Yeah. Oh man, dude, Timothy, thank you so much, man. And now I have a carded one. That's gonna go in the Cloud City shelf as well.
That is actually really
that
good
is
looking.
so cool.
And I love how the back is also printed with all the stuff. That's great.
It looks great.
It's really, really, really well done.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, man.
I feel like Hambone needs to become like someone in the credits of the show.
Yeah, well, he should, for real.
So yeah, there's a super chat up here. So Master Son says, according to IMDb, Flea was in Back to the Future, The Big Lebowski, Son-in-Law, but not Point Break. So yeah.
So who are you thinking of then in Point Break?
I think Anthony Kiedis is in Point Break, but you
Okay.
guys can correct me. My memory is very, very fallible. I am not Michael, and, you know, he remembers these little details, but I do not as much, except for, like, things like The Lost Boys, where or weirdly Dirty Dancing, where I, like, know whole sections of dialogue out of the movie. Those are the only movies, really, I have a handful of them, that you have like right. You know movies where I am like, no, I know that's not what they say, like verbatim this is what they say. But other than that, like, you know, or like old school Metallica breaking up and kicking Dave Mustaine out of the band, I know a lot about that. But, you know, I'm not going to get into any debates about who's in a movie because I really get people all confused in my mind. So
that's so funny.
Yes, Master Son confirms that it was Anthony Kiedis in Point Break, so thank you.
Okay.
And that was back when Anthony Kiedis was still really hot.
Wow.
Okay. So, any last final thoughts as we are approaching 4 o'clock?
No, there are no thoughts for me. We'll be back next Saturday. I'm working on a big video that's going to be landing early this next week. So it'll be on Patreon Monday, and then it'll be hitting the wider YouTube on Tuesday, probably. And then I'm going to be working on the next thing, which will probably be Robotech Part 4. But in the meantime, you guys just stay safe and healthy and have a good weekend. And if you need to get in touch with us, you know how to reach us. YouTube, Gmail, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You know how to reach us. So let us know. And in the meantime, we'll be here. So
I'm going to go make some cookies.
okay, well, I'm going to go turn off the stream.
They're like fake Girl Scout cookies. They taste like the Thin Mints, but they're not Thin Mints. But they're supposed to be really good. So I should like film that and then put it up on the Patreon or something. That'd be fun. Yeah, I see you guys calling out a movie called Dudes. I'm pretty sure I've seen that, but I don't really recall it. So I'll go check that out. And hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend.